I think the whole not introducing it is kind of working. Have we changed the name?
Change the name. Still need to get a new graphic done. So we need to get a new cover.
We should wear suits.
Just something super ironic.
Yeah,
just like, get really dressed up.
Yeah, then the Max and Los News Report. We could have a segment called the Max and Los News Report and have like... We
could. And then we could just reposition. We were talking about how we use how we're building out all the sets over there. So let's just build out Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert set.
Yes.
We go over there, we get outfit changed.
Yeah, and then dude, that'd be so good. All right, guys. So we're back here. Welcome to the pod. It's Max, Los, and we're talking about things that are going on in the news, marketing stuff, business things. First topic we were going to get started with is Elon Musk changing Twitter's name to X super randomly, and how it's completely backfiring. I know if you go to x.com now, it just redirects to Twitter. Twitter's icon and all that on apps is still the same. But what are your thoughts on this?
I posted about this other day, and I thought, I don't think it's the best idea. A lot of people disagreed with me, which kind of makes sense that I posted on Twitter. So I think there's and I'm a huge Elon Musk fan. So preface that, but huge Elon fan.
Both are.
We both are. I think one, the idea, the concept of the super app isn't a new concept, right? So in Asia and China and these places, they have it, and it's really, really effective. The problem though is Chinese consumers and people are different than American people. The way we do things, our cultures, what we've been grown up, raised on, technology wise, the apps we use. And so we're used to a fragmented ecosystem, not one app that controls everything. And so I think assuming that just because it works in China, it's going to work in the US is a little putting the cart before the horse there.
Yeah.
And then the final thing I think is you have Elon has lots of bad press with Twitter. Right. And so I think the logic some people say is it's smart because Twitter is so toxic and everyone hates Twitter. So if he changes the brand, the problem though is I don't think it's pretty clear that it's not Twitter, it's Elon.
Yeah.
Right. People don't hate Twitter just because it's Twitter. They hate Twitter now because Elon bought it and that he changed it and made it his platform.
Yeah.
So just getting rid of the Twitter brand and saying it's X is not going to change anything because people know it's still Elon.
Yeah.
So it's still going to get the same negative press. It's still going to be treated the exact same by all the mainstream media. It's just now going to be moved over to this new app. It's not like you were just Coke or McDonald's or whatever made this huge, massive mistake and the brand got tarnished and they changed the brand, right? It's the CEO of Coke or McDonald's had this huge stain and everyone hated him. And then they changed the name of the company, but he's still the CEO. It's not going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about it.
Man, I a lot of people on Twitter and on Threads are he had to do something to make a change with Threads. He's not going to do something in a week. So he's been thinking about this logically, right? So it wasn't because of that. I think he is thinking hey, listen, he's got experience from PayPal, right, on payments and all that. And so I think that he sees an opportunity where he can create that ecosystem. Some of the idea conceptually I like. I mean, people are more and more, like it or not, they're spending time on Twitter. Twitter ads are starting to work for a lot of people. Twitter has a million different ecosystems within itself, right? It's almost a variation of a better Reddit in a way, right? And if you start monetizing that and having ways to create commerce, I think it's obviously great. Everybody wants to do something like that. I think that the problem is, man, I just don't know what you're going to do to this business that's going to make it profitable. And I don't think it's kind of like Trump, Biden, whatever. If you like the person, you like them, you're in. Yep. If you don't, you don't. If Twitter did some stupid ass stuff because of Elon, I'd probably still have the guys back. He's still Elon, right? I'm not going to sit there and be I hate him. If Jack did it, I'd be fuck Jack, because I'm a big Twitter guy. Yeah. Or I'm not a Twitter guy. I'm an Elon guy. Yeah. You're a Trump guy. You're a Biden guy. DeSantis. I don't care about Trump if it came to DeSantis and Trump. But if not, I'd rather have Trump than, and it's not because I'm Republican. I'm pro DeSantis and kind of not pro Trump at all. But I'd rather, if I'm picking, who's your coach on the team, it's not Biden. You know what I mean?
It's the best of a bad choice.
That's exactly it. And so I think he's not stepping down. He's too egotistical to step down as CEO. I think it would help a ton on all his other stocks if he stepped down as CEO and just literally whispered what to do. But his ego is on some Tony Stark shit.
Yeah, it's it's hard to, because it's like a vicious cycle that he's in, right? Where he feels like, and again, we're making assumptions here, but totally. From the outside, it feels like he's dug this really deep hole, and he feels like he needs to fix the problem, that he's the only person that can fix the problem. Mm-hmm. But by him staying so focused on it and not letting other people come in and support it, it's actually getting worse, which makes him think he needs to step in more. And so I feel like he's kind of getting deeper and deeper and deeper, when it probably is best to just say, let me just step back. I can still advise, I can be, behind the scenes, like you said, nobody has to know, in secret, out of the limelight. I can go back to saying, hey, I'm focusing on,
Tesla,
SpaceX and Tesla and all this great stuff.
Increase the culture in Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Step out of X, let Linda come in and really grow the company, put the people she wants to put in there. Mm-hmm. But like you still, you're meeting with her on a regular basis and saying, hey, don't hire that person, don't do this person, but you're doing it behind the scenes. You need to do that, because it just, one human being, I don't care if you're Leonardo da Vinci, I don't care if you're the smartest person in the history of the world, you're Einstein, like you can't solve $44 billion problems. Right, it's such a massive problem. You can't do it by yourself, especially when it's not. It's even crazier because it's not just his only focus.
Right,
it's like he's solving one of the biggest challenges in business history,
and he's also trying to save the world.
Yeah, going to space and electric cars and all this stuff, and it's no human being can do that. Even if you're part robot, I don't know what he is, but it's you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah, I also think this is kind of irrelevant, but not so much. I mean, no one likes Zuck. Zuck went out, got in shape, started doing jujitsu, full rebrand. All of a sudden, Mark Zuckerberg never invented Meta, and like nothing happened. He's the best.
It's amazing.
Literally, the dude just got in shape, like did nothing else, and he put out a video of him kicking, and then there's a video of him like with Volkov and Israel Adesanya, which is like, if you're the two best fighters in the world, why wouldn't you want to work out with Mark? Like, that's badass. But then now you're like, he's Joe Roganing it. He's like badass. He should probably go on Joe Rogan right now. He would just like crush. His stock's booming, which leads me to what's not booming is Threads. Last week we talked, and Threads was it. I was stoked about Threads. It was moving. I have consistently stayed on Threads. Mm-hmm. It's not there. No, and it's funny.
So we have a new member of our team that's handling all our social and community, and she's doing an awesome job. And so she's like, we really ramped up the amount of content I'm putting out, right? So I'm putting out like three videos a day, lots of stuff. And the pod she was getting to and clipping it up. And it's funny because like yesterday or 2 days ago, she posted a clip, and it was about us talking about how like Threads versus Twitter, and Threads going to win. And I was like, oh man, like it's
that bit us in the ass.
A few days have gone by, but it's like, you say it, you stick to it. And, but it's actually gotten decent. I was like thinking about maybe should I just delete it and not post it, but it's like doing pretty well. So like, let's just leave it. And it could be in the long run, it could turn out to be right. I think the mistake they made, and when we spoke about it last time, we viewed it as a positive. And I think in hindsight probably was a mistake, was the way that they allowed you to move your IG audience over to Threads. I thought like this is actually a great idea because it gets a lot of users on the app really quickly and lots of engagement. The problem though is they peak too soon, right? It's all of a sudden day one, we have 30 million users and all this hype and everyone's talking about it and stuff. And it's like, in hindsight, if you're a brand new app and you even get 1 million users in the first day, 100,000 users the first day, that's great. They should have started that way, like totally organically. Like you just got to really sign up, not through Instagram. And then I don't think we'd be as negative because there'd been a steady increase. But instead it's like 30 million users, day one, hopping on it. And then, 10 million, 15 million got on there just because they saw something about it and it was like, they didn't know what they're doing and they checked it out for a day and then they stopped using it. And so instead of going steadily up, it went skyrocketed up and then it's coming down to like this level and it's probably going to now start growing like this from there.
Yeah. It's not going to be hockey stick, I think. No. And if my personal opinion, if they do not create some sort of integration with the Instagram app, it's going to be very difficult.
I agree.
It's going to be really difficult.
Meaning just as like similar to how you swipe left and you do stories.
Right. So like you have to, and I thought they were kind of like testing it with, how like you can kind of create your own little groups on there, which also isn't working.
The broadcast channel.
Yeah. It's doing nothing. It's no explanations. Nothing's happening really there. People are kind of messing with it, but like it's not creating any like growth, viral efforts or whatever. I think I was trying to make it, and I'm a marketer, so I was getting in the game, but I really noticed like engagement reach continues to go down. And then you're like, I can just do a thread on Twitter. And I'm just going to, and Twitter's a completely different app. The other thing is Twitter has different people in it. Facebook has different people in it. Insta has different people. There's a billion people in each one of them, right? Like, who cares? But the people that use it every day are totally different people. Your mom's on Facebook. You're on Insta, maybe some TikTok. Then, you're on Twitter. We create public content that's longer form, and we watch longer form stuff on podcast and on YouTube. Other than that, like it kind of, there's segments of people, and I think that bringing everyone in, it's the same old. So if the same old people are going to still sit there, they're also used to not that content. That group that follows you on Insta isn't the Twitter group. So there's no reach, there's no search, there's no like opportunity to like gain people. And I said this on the last podcast. I thought that the amount of reach that they gave you from the beginning, very weak. If they would, because there's no dopamine anymore. They gave you that first week of dopamine and it killed your receptors. Now you're like, what am I going there for? I got nothing.
It's a challenge, right? It's like we talked about this. It's a smart move out of the gate. You need to have that dopamine because you want people to get excited about it and talk about it. But you also, again, going back to what I said earlier, like if you don't continue it, then the drop off's dramatic, right? That's why like drug addiction is a big thing because you flood dopamine, you release all these, chemicals in your brain when you take drugs.
That's why cold plunging is so big.
And then it spikes down, right? Whereas if you just kind of stabilize, it goes like this a little bit. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
And so it's the same thing with social media. It's if you hit people really, really hard, where it's just crazy for the first few days, and then even it goes to normal, it feels like a huge drop off.
Yeah.
And so, I think they made a mistake of flooding it too hard, too fast. And I think it was probably intentional because they're like, we're going to get this massive PR and all this stuff. We're going to crush Twitter. And I think it's backfiring. That they need to get something going in there to give current users more reach, more wins. But I don't know how obviously artificially you can do stuff like that, but it's not an easy task.
I don't know how, because I'm certainly not like in that side of the business, but I would have really dug into why did TikTok become TikTok, right? And it's because they gave and still give like reach.
Yeah.
Even though it's less, it's still more than anyone else. And like admittedly, it's significantly less, but still massive, right? New people came out, Vine, all that kind of stuff, right? So you're going Twitter, copy, cool. But then also copy the potential opportunity of normal, like if one thing hits a little bit and it gets a little bit of engagement, set it to phase 2 and spread it out to people that are completely different, and then spread that out. And if people's threads were getting 150 comments and 10,000 shares, you would lose it. You'd be like, oh my God. And you'd start creating that opportunity. Also, it kind of created a little bit more happy-go-lucky because the Instagram audience, it's less news and specificity and like things. So if you're going to waste your time reading, you're not going to waste your time reading. It's kind of like an oxymoron. You're going to engage and like learn while you're reading. You're going to go back to Twitter, mediums, blogs, like educational or conversational kind of things, not just like, Johnny put a quick meme in there. And that's the other thing too. It started with words. Then it was words and memes. Now it's words, memes, and videos. It's Instagram. Like I can just post almost everything. If I post words and a smaller clip on my threads, I'm Instagramming. Like what changed?
Yeah, it is hard for these apps to stay separate.
Yeah.
And there's a convergence that happens over time where they capture a massive chunk of the market. And the only way for them to get more time on app is to grab market share from other apps by adding those features.
Right.
And you see that happening. TikTok's adding text.
Yeah.
So now there's text posts on TikTok and there's video. They're all becoming the same app.
Yeah.
Which is when we talked last week about threads, it's like one of the reasons why I actually liked the day one threads was that it was like very simple. It was just text. And even Twitter's gotten, has all kinds of stuff now. It has spaces and has all this
threads
stuff.
is even too much.
And now it's making the same mistake that all the apps make. But the final thing I'll say on this is like, I agree with your point about, it seems like it's an easy strategy from the team that's kind of managing engagement in the app and time on app and all that stuff is just like create a ratio. And this is what TikTok did basically, right? So create a ratio where it's every, 10 threads, we're just going to give this massive boost because all you need. And again, TikTok has really perfected that.
Right.
Where you can get, like, TikTok knows every user when they get to that point where they're like, I'm going to give up on this. Like, they just know it. They're all the data science behind it. And they just hit you with that, like, oh, this video got 10,000. If you got, average 100 views, 10,000 views. If you average, 1,000 views, they give you 100,000 views. And then that keeps you happy for another few weeks or however long it is, another 10 videos, 12 videos, 15 videos. Like, they need to do that. That's like, hire somebody that manages casinos or things like that. Cause that's what they do in Vegas, right? Vegas knows if you have the game card at any casino, they know all those individuals, what their threshold is. Everyone has a threshold in Vegas when they're gambling of how much money they can lose before they just quit. Because usually what happens the first time you start losing money is you think, I can win it back.
Yep.
You're down $100, $500. I'm going to keep playing. I can win it back. But everyone has a number that once they pass that, they're like,
it's over. I lost it.
I lost it. It's $2,000, $10,000, whatever it is. And so they know. And so as soon as you get close to it, they're going to have somebody come by. Hey, free show tickets. Hey, here's a free buffet ticket. Something to get you off the slot machine, off the table. So you leave, you disconnect from it. You come back to the tables a few hours later or tomorrow. Like, it's a science. It's really interesting.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say too is, and I think everyone needs to do this. So I went to New York last week to go see Drake, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't search New York things, but I don't go to New York much. So I was like, where do I eat? How do I do things? That whole week, it was like, if you're in Brooklyn, if you're here, boom, like within a couple of swipes, I was a New Yorker, right?
Yep.
No other app really does that. And if Facebook, because it's always fighting Facebook for the most part. If Facebook can figure out with all their tools how to steal the people from TikTok, because they do have a different algorithm where you're swiping a couple and the search is specific to that, and you can swipe back and like now it's everything Orlando, right? And like other things I like. Boom, we're totally right back. And I knew I was like, save a couple, do this, like boom, 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 like completely back. If they would have done that, or if they do that and integrate that more again on all their tools, they can get it back, because it's a mixture of dopamine and like necessity of like what they're looking to read, and Twitter does that very well as well. So I think that's the things that they need to change. What else you got?
I mean, so we got two more topics we can go over. One is the AI, the Netflix AI job, and there's some Facebook censorship that's come out. So you pick which one you want to cover first.
Let's stay with the book. Then we'll go AI, because that story is crazy.
Yeah. So I was reading a Wall Street Journal article this morning, and basically there's Congress right now is doing some investigations into big tech. And so they've subpoenaed a bunch of documents. So they're getting tens of thousands, 50,000, 100,000 documents from Meta and Alphabet and Apple and all the big tech companies. And in those documents, one of the things they started seeing was basically the current administration in 2021 having, and we've already heard this with Twitter when the Twitter files came out, and now it's seeming with what's happening with Meta, basically saying, we need you to take this content down around vaccines, around COVID and stuff. Yeah. And so it's interesting too. Internally, there was emails released and communication released that basically was like Nick Clegg, who's their kind of head of government affairs, and Sheryl Sandberg, who was the chief operating officer at the time, saying like, I think one of the things they were pushing for a lot was like satirical posts that were like humor. And they were like, Mark's never going to go for this. Like, Mark is definitely against us, not going to go for this. But there's this dialogue of like, well, if we don't do it, then, we're already on a slippery slope. We don't want the government pushing further and more regulation on us and all this stuff. So you're playing this game of like, we don't really want to go along with this, which I give them credit. In at least the documents I looked at, they seemed like they didn't want it. There was a lot of dialogue of saying like, that's not us, it's not Mark, and Mark would never do it. But it does seem like they ended up caving on a lot of stuff and getting rid of a lot of content. What was interesting is in the documents, one of the things I think Sheryl Sandberg said, which I agree with 100%, is that the logic behind this, a lot of it was around it was around the vaccine rollout, and they want to get rid of hesitancy and people that were posting stuff about it to make sure they actually get the vaccine. And what she said, which is, again, I totally agree with, is that this could actually backfire, and the more we censor, the more entrenched we make those people in their views, because they feel like we're hiding something. And which I totally agree with.
It happened.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened.
Yes.
Is that it turns out when people are already conspiratorial and skeptical on things, and then you start deleting their posts and removing stuff, it makes them more conspiratorial and more suspect of things, and it spirals, and they post more things, but they post on channels they can post on. So it definitely backfired. Obviously, I think it's terrifying. We talked about this probably a year, 2 years ago, like over the last 2 years on the pod, back when it was down the middle. It's like, this is a slippery slope of initially kind of government suggestion, and then government outright just saying, take this down, of the divide between, because everyone says, well, they're private companies, they can do whatever they want. And that is true, unless it's the government and the White House specifically saying to them, we need you to remove speech. That's where it gets really, really dicey and really scary. And I know people are going to say, well, it was for a good cause, whatever they're going to say. I frankly, take COVID out. I could care less about the underlying topic and the reasoning. You can put any subject you want in there, right? What it comes down to is that it sets precedent, and any administration that comes in, if they're conservative, liberal, progressive, far right, far left, whatever it is, like, it sets a really, really bad precedent that now they can do it. And who's going to say that the next thing that happens during the election cycle, whatever on either side, you don't hear the administration saying to Meta and Twitter and all these companies, hey, this is dangerous speech over here. We need you to take this down, right? It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, everyone thinks that they are public companies, but they still serve one master, like, just like you said, like, you are what you are until, which is funny because it's only when it comes to American stuff, right? Like, then you have TikTok having all these problems, but like nothing actually happens. And then you have like Zoom, which basically also had a better version of like data than TikTok had and doesn't really get brought up. Shein is in a totally different way with an e-commerce level, like stealing all of our stuff and like literally ripping off like all the brands. And no one says anything, but we get in trouble as companies. Well, not that we're whatever, but you know what I mean? Because they're trying to keep an agenda. I mean, like, at the end of the day, they're massive social platforms. They're media companies. They're the biggest media conglomerates in the universe. They are the distribution of voices, right? And so if they want a certain thing said, like, it's going to happen, right? Like the LeBron James' son thing that just happened, right? Like, he just had cardiac arrest, and a lot of people are talking about it's because he got the vaccine. And a lot of that actually on Threads and on Instagram, I don't know on Twitter because I don't go on it that much, is being shut down. Because I was listening to a group chat pod, and they're like, yeah, like, there's all this problem now going on where, the LeBron James' son, he's fine now, everything's good. But a lot of people are like, hey, it's because he did the vaccine, and boom, 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 censored, like guidelines. You can't talk about it, but it's a conversation. And if you're creating conversational social platforms, I mean, unless you're saying crazy, racist, sexist, like outlandish shit, like, that's not a nuts thing to discuss, with your friends in a group chat, in a conversation, which is just posing the questions online.
Yeah. I mean, my challenge to this has always been that there are certain things that we definitively do not know, unless you are 100% certain that this is a indisputable fact. It is very difficult to say you can't question something. Right. Because at the moment it might not be the popular establishment opinion. And I think we saw a ton of that during the 2020 to 2022, right? Whether it was like, and people say, well, there's only a few examples. It doesn't matter, the big examples. The Hunter Biden laptop thing. That was massive. That was, New York Post, one of the oldest media company, oldest newspaper in the country, was censored, was banned. Like, they couldn't post. Yeah. This article couldn't be posted or shared anywhere about this. And it turns out, actually, and people got banned for it, all kinds of stuff. Actually, it turns out it was totally real, and the stuff on it's absolutely crazy. And his plea deal fell apart, and he may go to jail. Like, there's no recourse. There's no repercussions. No. And so it's like, I get it. Maybe 9 out of 10 of these people that have these, they're saying these crazy things on social media are totally wrong. And it turns out they're actually, in 5 years, we'll know they're totally wrong. Yeah. Cool. The problem, though, is that if 1 out of 10 or even 0.5 out of 10 turn out to be true, it's a slippery slope to just proactively say, like, everything you're saying is crazy and bad shit and wrong. And we're not even saying that. It's like, have the debate, have the argument, right? Have somebody on the other side come in and argue that and debate it and use facts and use data to support your position, and you let people decide. That's the way it should work. And then in a few years or 6 months or however long, we'll have data on something, and we'll know for a fact that this was right, this was wrong, and the history books will tell. But it's like allowing the media and social media and big tech and the government to basically dictate in the moment when they don't know for a fact, even the origin of the virus, right? That was a big thing. For a long time, you couldn't question the narrative. You couldn't question the story, and we still don't know. But it turns out it's way more likely than a few years ago that it did come from a lab. Now, again, did it? We don't know. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it did come from the market.
It can't be discussed. But
at least there's now New York Times, everyone's talking about it now, right? They can talk about it now. They can have a discussion. Maybe it's here. It's an opinion piece. At the time, couldn't be discussed, right? And if you discussed it, you were banned from social media. Mm-hmm. You were banned from having a voice on it. And I don't think that's the right way. Even if I disagree with all these things, right? It's like you can have two opinions. Two things can be true. Like you can personally disagree with what somebody's saying, but support and agree with their ability to be able to say that and have a discussion about it. And I don't like this model. It happened with Rogan.
It happened with Rogan, yeah.
A few weeks ago when he had RFK on. Mm-hmm. And listen,
and it happened with Rogan. We talked about this 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's happened a few times.
Yeah.
And listen, RFK, I think a lot of what he says is pretty crazy. I think he says certain things. It's like, oh, okay. But then he just goes. And when he was on Rogan, he all of a sudden he was talking about Wi-Fi opening, the blood brain, all this stuff. And it's like, dude, what? And it goes really far. It's like those people that kind of, some conspiracy theories turn out to be true, but you can't agree with all of them. You can't be every conspiracy theory is true.
He almost sounds like Joe Rogan's jiu-jitsu trainer, Eddie Bravo.
Yeah, he's like Eddie Bravo with a Kennedy. And so listen, I think a lot of what he says is crazy. I think some of the stuff that he says is interesting and seems accurate. The reality though is that he's polling consistently 15 to 20% against the incumbent president, who's basically the whole machine is against this guy. They don't want him to run. They're not going to debate him and stuff. He's still polling around 20%. You can't dismiss that. There's clearly people that are interested in what he's got to say. And when you come out and say, after the interview, people came out and said, all the science was he's a crazy person, conspiracy, and we shouldn't be platforming and all this stuff. And then, Rogan went out and said, well, why don't you come on my show and say all the reasons why he's wrong? I'm like, no one will do it. We shouldn't. And the argument is we shouldn't even humor it. We shouldn't give him the time of day and even acknowledge his opinion. By doing that, we give him clout and we acknowledge him and we give him credibility and stuff. And
you do the same by doing this.
Yeah, you're not. What you're doing is the exact opposite, because all you're doing now is he's not going to go away. He's going to keep doing all that. He's, from a marketing perspective.
You're giving him power.
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, what he's doing is brilliant. He is everywhere. Same with Vivek. They are everywhere. Every pod, every new, they don't care who it is. As long as there's an audience, they're going to go there. So he's going to keep talking, and people are going to keep listening, and he's going to keep polling at 15 to 20% because he's a Kennedy. Kennedy's not going to go away, right? And so that's not going to change anything. And you saying you're not willing to debate him, again, going back to the banning thing, all it does is play into the narrative. All it does is make the people that believe him more, because they think you can't debate him. They're like, hey, the reason they're not going to debate him is because they know they can't win. That's what they're thinking in their head. So you're not swaying opinions. If anything, you're getting people on the middle that were like, maybe he has a point. Now they're going to be like, he has a point, because they have it. So the easiest thing is, and that's what science should do. That's what business, economy, all these things. If you have a different opinion from somebody, you're capitalist, socialist.
Debate it.
Go on a long form podcast, go on a show, get on a stage, get on social media, whatever it is, and hash it out. Share your opinions, share your facts, share your data, and have a rational, civil discussion about something. I don't know when that became a bad thing. It's a very weird place that we're in now, where having that opinion, that two human beings that have a different opinion, but are still civilized human beings, can sit down and disagree, but have a civil conversation and debate on something. How that's wrong is wild to me. And I think it's really dangerous just assuming that.
It's what's created the divide we live in now.
Yeah. Because one side believes that every opinion they have is universally true, and that they don't have to defend their position because it's universally true. Mm-hmm. And that is pissing a lot of people off. A lot of people who are even in that party, right? And I don't think it ends well. I think this continues to divide the country. I think continues to polarize opinions. I think it continues to push people who are relatively in the center to one extreme or the other.
That's all that exists. I mean, people like us, we're pretty much down the middle, right?
Yeah.
No pun intended. But if you're not, like so because of that, you don't matter, right? So you're either crazy to the right or crazy to the left. If you're in the middle, you don't know anything, and you're probably, whatever your opinion was of your last sentence, you're polling over there.
Yeah,
that's it. That's it. Point blank.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I think hopefully just as more of this stuff comes out and as there's more evidence where it's like, the government's telling big tech what to do, right? Yeah. Even if it's subtly telling them what to do, that's a problem and needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
I don't care who's in administration.
I think the one thing that's definitely coming out is that the government just keeps secrets, and now it's like, oh yeah, by the way, like aliens and stuff. By the way, like
we need to talk about that next week when there's a few more things coming out, and that fascinates me, and we can talk 100%. For a whole hour about the aliens and stuff.
So, but let's talk about Netflix, the strikes, and possibly losing your job if you don't get a skill.
Yeah, I mean, we can wrap on that. Listen, I'm not a big union strike,
right?
And it's not to say that I don't think that I think everyone should be paid well, compensated well. I don't think anybody should be working and not I don't think there should be a situation where people have to work 3 jobs to survive. So I'm all for that. I do think, especially in this case, the writers and the actors that are striking have a valid concern to be striking. Because it's this idea that basically some of the stuff that's come out basically is like, hey, if you're an extra, because a lot of actors, we think of Wahlberg and stuff, but most actors aren't making millions or 6 figures. They're doing background work. When you see a movie or TV show, there's people walking in the back. Yep. Yeah. What they're saying now is a lot of those people, hey, we'll pay you one time, we'll scan you essentially, and then we can just use you in infinite movies and TV shows and not compensate you.
Yeah.
And I think that is crazy, and that is wrong, and that should be illegal. It's me. I own my likeness. Right. At a minimum, you should have to compensate me 20, 30% or whatever for every use case. Something like that. I mean, not 100% because you're not actually there. So you're basically getting free money at that point, but you should still be compensated. And so that's there's a lot of debates around pay, around residuals, and the big ones around AI, obviously, and how AI is going to impact acting and all that stuff and writing. I don't know how you address it. I honestly don't. I think the Hollywood's the economic model of Hollywood is broken.
I totally agree. I think, AI is not going to take our jobs. If anything, it's going to support ours, and it's not going to take blue collar stuff. If I can see AI getting rid of anything, it's movies, shows, scripting, TVs, background. Kevin Hart being like, yeah, give me $10 million and then you can use this and give me a license on my name, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Commercials, UGC, different things like that later on, right? For bigger kind of situations. That I can see right now, if we sat down for 2 days, we could create a whole script of a movie, Max and Los Take the World, and then do it on Midjourney and create us Simpson-based looking characters, and also make a whole album from it and have it out in a week. We could do that. So experts are like, yeah, you're not needed. You know what I mean? That is going to get taken, and obviously the kiosks and the McDonald's and the Walmarts and the little things like that. Hey, my hand is used to scan something, and then I give you a receipt. That's not a skill. So definitely it's already being replaced. But I think those two are going to be crazy. And I agree with you, man. One of the things I hate the most, and then I'll pass it to you and we can close it. But one of the things that I hate the most is not having old school TV. Tuesdays at 7, I watch Max and Lowe's. Wednesdays at 8, I watch this other Fear Factor. Thursdays at 9, that's it. You have so much, and it's also all garbage. It's all trash. Or then you binge, so you become dumber. You're just either binging a show completely or like not interested in watching a show. So you're watching your TV because there's nothing else. Like no one has normal cable, and no one watches movies. No one goes to the movie theater. Barbie did good, but like on comparison to like how movies used to be, it didn't do well. It's just going to keep going. You're going to have your outlier. All Marvel movies moving forward have completely sucked, and even they are like, hey, we're taking a pause here because like we've hoarded the name out so much that every movie just sucks and there's no plot. They're comedy movies now. They're not action movies. They don't know what they're doing. They're just kind of, no real movie has come out also probably in like a decade or two. You guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but like that is original. It's Transformers, Barbie, like what we grew up watching. It's just the same thing again. Like there's no plots, and I think AI is going to fix it, but it's going to take down a lot of the industry of what it looks like today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a massive shift. I think it's inevitable that a lot of jobs are going to be replaced, and unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of the. I think it's going to be the gap, right? Because like you said, the Kevin Harts, the big celebs, they're going to make way more money because of it, because they can be everywhere
and
now.
do less.
It's going to be the gap of people trying to get there that are going to really, really struggle. I think the irony of all of this, and this is the point of the story, was that Netflix put out that job listing. It was $300,000 to $900,000 a year, really big salary range for a kind of AI lead to kind of run the AI team over there, or at least be high up in the AI team there. And they're getting all kinds of pushback. I don't know who their PR people over at Netflix. Wasn't probably the smartest move to roll that job listing out during the peak of the strike over AI.
Yeah, and their numbers were starting to look better too.
Yeah, so it was a weird move, but I get it. And this is the unfortunate irony of striking and pushing for higher pay, is that who it impacts is small to mid-sized businesses.
Yeah.
What ends up happening though, the big companies, they just invest massively in automation and robotics
and not having
AI.
this conversation again.
Yeah. And so what happened with, when there's minimum wage talk, what happens? You go to McDonald's now, guess what? You're ordering from a giant display. You go to Wawa now, touchscreen display you're ordering from. You're paying, self-checkout. You go to Walmart, you go to Target. Dude, we go to Walmart now, the one in Lake Nona, because there's no Target in Lake Nona, and it's one of those super ones. There's literally, they have I think 25 checkout lanes.
There's one person working,
one lane open every time, and they got the two end caps of self checkout. So you have people now self checking out with 40 items. It takes forever.
Yeah,
and that's going to continue to get worse because Walmart and Target are like, hey, if you want us to pay $18 an hour, $20 an hour, we'll do it. But we're just going to hire a lot less people. And then we're going to invest all the additional money into self-checkout, into AI, into robotics. And I think you're going to see now happen with Hollywood is the strike. They might get what they want. But what's going to happen is now you're going to have a much more investment, much more rapidly in AI. Because they're going to want, if you're Bob Iger at Disney, you're like, listen, I don't want to deal with the strike ever again. I don't want this to happen again. I'm not going to let it happen again. So let's invest $1 billion, $2 billion into figuring out how to get AI to create background actors and do all this stuff in the next 3 to 5 years. So we don't have to worry about it. So if they strike in the future, we can just say, hey, good luck. We're ready to go.
And it'll probably make them more profitable because there's way less expenses.
Way more profitable. And that's what happened. And then we can wrap here. I mean, everyone's like so surprised by this bull run happening right now. It's not a surprise. It's all big tech fired everybody.
Yeah.
You know what happens when you fire 20,000 people?
Numbers go up.
Your numbers go up because your expenses went down. And that's what's happening right now is all these companies just fire tons of people, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 people. You make more money.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. All right, guys, subscribe, join the notifications, and we will see you guys on the next one. Let us know at Los Hustle and at Max Finn on all socials. If you guys want us to talk about a certain topic, next week, we're probably going to talk a little bit about aliens, some marketing, and some other stuff. All right, that's it for me and Max. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Later, guys.
Bye.